Well, guess what, Darian Peterson? Look in the damn mirror. And when you look in the mirror, you know what you're going to see? You're going to see an all-world player that people have mentioned in the same breath as Kobe Bryant. That's how terrific of a basketball player Darian Peterson is.
Every NBA draft has one player who gets compared to greatness. Most of those comparisons disappear within a few years. Some players are called the next Michael Jordan. Some become the next LeBron James. Others hear the name Kobe Bryant before they've even played a single NBA game. Almost every time, those comparisons become a burden, but this time, something feels different because Darian Peterson isn't being compared to Kobe just because he scores tough baskets. He's being compared because of the way he thinks about basketball. The footwork, the patience, the obsession with improvement, and the moment he heard his name called on draft night, he wasn't thinking about celebrating. He was already thinking about tomorrow's workout. So the real question isn't, can Darian Peterson become the next Kobe Bryant? The real question is, what if he's trying to become something even more dangerous? Basketball has always loved superstars, but every generation searches for someone who doesn't just put up numbers, someone who changes the way the game feels. That's exactly why scouts couldn't stop talking about Darian Peterson. Before he ever stepped onto an NBA floor, before he signed his first professional contract, people inside basketball were already saying his name with unusual confidence. Not because he was flashy, not because he was the most athletic prospect, but because of something far more valuable. Control. At 6'5" with an elite wingspan and a body already built for NBA contact, Peterson looked physically ready, but his body wasn't what separated him. His mind did. Here's where the story really begins. Long before NBA arenas, long before national television, there was a kid in Canton, Ohio, chasing perfection. Every workout had a purpose. Every mistake became another lesson. While other young stars relied on speed and athleticism, Peterson became obsessed with learning how defenders moved, how they reacted, how they lost balance. Because once you understand your defender, you don't need to be the fastest player on the court. You simply become the smartest. And that's a terrifying weapon. And by the time high school basketball started paying attention, the numbers became impossible to ignore. Season after season, Peterson wasn't just scoring. He was dominating games from every area of the floor. Mid-range, three-point line, transition, post-ups, isolation. His game didn't belong to one era. It looked like a mixture of old school fundamentals and modern NBA shot creation. That's when college programs across America started calling. Every major school wanted him. Every coach believed they could build around him. But one decision would change everything. Kansas. One of college basketball's biggest stages, and suddenly the expectations became impossible to escape. Pressure creates two kinds of players. Some players shrink, others become legends. The moment Peterson walked onto Kansas campus, every practice felt like an NBA audition. Every possession was analyzed. Every missed shot became social media content. Every great performance created another headline. Because once people start mentioning Kobe Bryant, nobody watches you normally anymore. Every move gets compared, every fadeaway, every turnaround jumper, every defensive possession, fair or unfair. That's the reality. But here's what most people missed. Peterson never asked for those comparisons. He simply kept working, and that may have been the biggest clue about who he really was. When then came the games, and almost immediately, fans understood why scouts had been so excited. His scoring wasn't random, it was calculated. He didn't attack at full speed every possession. He slowed defenders down, forced mistakes, created space with footwork instead of pure explosiveness. Watch closely. His shoulders tell one story, his feet tell another, and before defenders realize what's happening, the ball is already through the net. That's a skill that usually takes NBA veterans years to develop. Peterson was already showing flashes of it before turning 20. But every great story eventually reaches its first obstacle, and Peterson's arrived much sooner than anyone expected, because just when people thought his rise would continue without interruption, everything changed. Questions started replacing praise. Critics became louder. And suddenly, the conversation wasn't only about his talent anymore. It became about whether he could actually survive the grind of an NBA season. And that's where this story takes a completely different turn. Just when everything seemed to be falling perfectly into place, the story changed. Not because Darian Peterson suddenly forgot how to play basketball, not because the talent disappeared, but because one question started following him everywhere. Can his body keep up with his potential? And in sports, sometimes that question becomes louder than everything else. Kansas expected a superstar. The fans expected domination. NBA scouts expected the best player in college basketball. But instead of talking about 30-point performances, people started talking about missed games, training sessions, recovery, conditioning. Every update created another headline. Every absence created another debate. Suddenly, the conversation wasn't about what Peterson could do. It became about what he couldn't do, and that's exactly how public opinion changes. Fast. Here's what makes elite prospects different. Most players panic when criticism arrives. They try to silence everyone with one big game. They force difficult shots. They stop trusting the process. But Peterson never looked interested in winning the argument. He looked interested in improving, and there's a huge difference. Because confidence isn't talking louder than your critics. Confidence is continuing to work. Even when everyone is questioning you. Now let's still party. The criticism wasn't completely unfair. Scouts noticed things they wanted to see improve. At times, Peterson settled for difficult jumpers instead of attacking the rim. Sometimes he trusted his shot a little too much. Others questioned whether he could become a reliable playmaker at the NBA level. Could he create for teammates consistently? Could he make quick decisions under pressure? Those weren't impossible questions. They were normal questions. Every top prospect enters the draft with weaknesses. The difference is, Peterson's strengths were simply too special to ignore. And here's what most casual fans never understood. When scouts evaluate a future NBA star, they aren't just watching the stat sheet, they're watching habits. Footwork, decision-making, body language, defensive effort, reaction after mistakes. Those tiny details often predict future greatness better than points per game ever can. And in those areas, Peterson kept impressing people again and again and again. Then came the biggest stage of all, NBA Draft Night. One moment, years of hard work, thousands of hours inside empty gyms, countless early mornings, late night workouts. Everything had led to this. The lights, the cameras, the commissioner walking toward the podium, millions of fans watching around the world. For every young basketball player, this is the dream. But dreams don't always unfold exactly the way you imagine. One name was called before his. Just one. That was enough. For some players, being selected second overall would feel like victory. For Peterson, it felt like unfinished business. Not because he wasn't grateful, but because competitors don't remember who applauded them. They remember who doubted them. And according to people close to Peterson, that feeling wasn't going anywhere. Then something happened that caught everyone's attention. While other draft picks celebrated, laughed, took pictures, and enjoyed the biggest night of their lives, Peterson's focus already seemed somewhere else. The excitement lasted only a moment. His answers became calm. His expression barely changed. Almost as if the real work hadn't started yet. Because in his mind, getting drafted wasn't the destination. It was day one. And that's a mentality coaches dream about. But here's where the story becomes even more interesting. Talent can earn you a draft position. Potential can create headlines. Confidence can impress interviews. None of those things guarantee NBA success. The league has humbled thousands of players before. Every season, lottery picks disappear. Can't miss prospects miss. Future superstars never become stars. The NBA doesn't care about your reputation. It only rewards consistency, and that's the challenge waiting for Darian Peterson. Not proving he's talented. Everyone already believes that. The